Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Real inspiration for real innovators. If you're looking for innovation and leadership transformation, your journey starts now.
Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Born, and we are continuing our journey through Set It on Fire, the Art of Innovation. And my behind the scenes partner is back with us, Moriah Hidden. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be back, Natalie. I'm looking forward to this chapter because I think a lot of people have great ideas, talking about great ideas, but a lot of people don't know what to do with those great ideas. So I'm excited to dive in.
That's right. So we're talking about socializing innovation today. And I feel like as an innovator, this is one of the most important lessons we can learn, especially in a corporate setting. That's one version of it. But also if you're an entrepreneur and you're launching something new, socializing innovation is a secret power, right? It's a superpower that actually helps you to be more successful in whatever you're trying to build. So excited to dive in on this one because I think that people are going to get a lot out of learning how to socialize their ideas better.
I love that. And I love just in this chapter, you talk about multiple different ways to socialize those ideas. So let's just kick it off. You and we have been talking about silos over the past couple episodes. You talk about the importance of breaking down those silos and bringing in cross-functional voices early on into the idea process. What does it practically look like for teams to move from working in isolation to truly collaborating around an idea?
Yeah, so something I say all the time is innovation is no longer about brilliant individuals, it's about brilliant teams. And so, what is really hard sometimes in certain environments about innovation is sometimes teams are easier to work with than others. And so, sometimes when people hear the idea of socializing an idea, they would actually rather surprise people with the idea because the environment, when we try to socialize, sometimes we're not as successful as we'd like to be. And so part of this book, this particular chapter, it really encourages us to figure out how to manage our stakeholders early. Because ultimately, I've seen this before where people try to hold a project and they wait until the very end and then they surprise everyone and it ends up stalling the entire project and sometimes setting them back months or even a year because they didn't bring the right people to the table. So, as hard as it is to bring people to the table up front, I find that people are more successful when they do that. And so, this is really kind of the premise of this section of the book is like, how do we get our ideas out there? How do we socialize them through an organization? And then, even down to the customer, how do we ensure that they can be successful with whatever idea they have?
Yeah, that's good. I like how in this chapter you talk about bringing in people from different teams because then they have a different viewpoints and they see things from different angles. Can you talk a little bit about the people that you call zero gravity people, the honest people? I know sometimes we don't always want the honest answer, even if it's a little bit difficult, but it does push us forward. So can you go into what the zero gravity people are?
Yeah, so let's think about this when let's say we have a new idea that we're launching internally and then we're going to sell that to a customer or have customers use it. Oftentimes our frontline workers will tell us why customers complain, and that's actually a secret to whatever we're innovating on, whatever we're building. Account managers will often tell us what clients really like in terms of features, what they're using, what they're not using, what's, kind of tripping them up, what's not. And then the sales team can tell you so much about customer behavior and why customers buy your product. And so these are all people that are so important to have at the table when we're making a decision or when we're building something new. But there's this other group of people that are so important to have at the table, and they're zero gravity thinkers. They're the people that honestly, they are not held back by the politics that are taking place within your organization. They are free from the team politics, the internal politics, and they're the people that will just tell you the truth. And everyone needs at least a few of these people on their team when they're building something so that when they put that idea in front of that person, they'll just be honest, they'll cut through the noise, and they'll get down to the truth. And so this is something that Cynthia Barton Robb, she kind of coined this phrase, zero gravity thinkers. And I love it because it talks about the people that cut through the noise and get to the truth of how they feel about what you're building.
That's awesome. Kind of building your dream team for when you first get ideas and figuring it out all internally. But then we move to the externally part once you have your ideas, once you have your dream team ready. So my question for you is in this chapter, you emphasize getting ideas out in the field early, even in a rough napkin sketch form. So why is it important to socialize ideas before they're fully built and not waiting for an idea to be perfect? And what do teams risk when they wait too long?
Yeah. So here's I say this all the time too. I say like if you're building an idea to the point where it's perfect, you've probably missed your moment. And so a lot of times what we do is instead of us rapidly kind of building something small, going out to the customer, having conversations, we may incubate that idea for a year. Well, that's too long. And over that time, the market's changing, customer sentiment is changing. And so the wisdom is how do we get in front of our customers fast as we can and make sure that we're iterating or developing that idea over time with them. And so if we think about this, if we think about how fast business and markets move, we need to move as fast as we can with the idea that we have, understanding it, making sure it's clear to the customer and they know what to do. And so while I might have said napkin sketch in my book, today you can work with AI and you can have a prototype, right, within 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. That is something you could take out into the world and begin to talk to customers about it. So that's the idea behind it. It's like, let's not wait until we get it perfect. Let's start to deliver value as soon as we can so that we can learn what people like and dislike and if they're actually going to buy into what we're trying to build in the first place.
I love that. And I love how it's so encouraging to know that you don't have to be perfect and your ideas don't have to be perfect because sometimes I think that might be a fear of like, okay, we don't have it all figured out yet. We don't know if it's going to work. But that's where the voices come in and they're able to catch things that you haven't or figure out issues that you haven't figured out. So I think it's encouraging to know that your idea doesn't have to be perfect. And it's actually better that you get it out when it's not perfect so that you can fix it in the beginning time. So you're not working super difficult and super hard. And then down the road, they're like, no, you got to start over. So
Yeah, well, let me just say this too, because there's something that we say in product development all the time, which is like, if you're not embarrassed of your version one, then you waited too long. Like when we look back and we're in version 10 and we look back at version one, we should be like, man, that was embarrassing. Like, what was I thinking? This is not that great. It doesn't look that good. But you know what? Somebody bought it. I released value and I worked with those clients to build it to the version 10 that it's in today. That's what we all want to be able to say. And that's the hardest part about releasing value quickly is when we look back on it. I mean, think about if you've been doing social media for a year and you go back and look at your first post a year ago, you're like, oh, that's embarrassing. What was I talking about? It's the same way with product development, right? The very first version of whatever we release, and looking back, we're going to be like, man, we've come such a long way. The problem is most people want it to be perfect. And so they miss their moment in the market. They don't release value quickly and then people don't actually buy the product. And something that I think is so important is that perfectionism steals the seeds that you should sow today by telling you it'd be better to sow them tomorrow. And that's where we actually miss our moment because we're not sowing the seed today to grow it to where it needs to be tomorrow. And when we hold those seeds and we don't sow them, we look for a year from now and we've planted nothing. We have nothing to show for it. So it would be better for us to get it out early, feel a little embarrassed, but then to keep building as fast as we can.
yeah, that's so good. How would you say for leaders to foster that environment and where their teams feel empowered to release ideas quickly and iterate on them?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important is to learn how to socialize innovation within an organization. Oftentimes there's not places to take your idea to. We have that horrible suggestion box that's the email that no one checks. And so it just goes into a black hole. And oftentimes I find that people that are deep in the organization, even on the front line of the organization, sometimes they have the best ideas because they're seeing things over and over again. And they're like, man, if we could just solve for this, this would save us 20% of the phone calls we get every day. Or if we would just solve for this, people could stop complaining about this one thing. And so part of what we have to do as leaders is create forums for people to be able to tell us their ideas, be able to work through solutions to their ideas, and then to be able to push that solution out and actually see the value of it. And that is how we create everyday innovators in an organization is we're teaching people how to surface problems, solve the problem, and then create ideation with the rest of the team so that they can speak into the problem and then ultimately release value that goes back to the customer. And so there's many different ways that we can do it. But I wish that people would spend more time thinking about these amazing people that work in their business, that have all these ideas, that see kind of the frontline customer daily. And so they actually have solutions that we don't even realize they have in their brain that could help us solve some of our toughest challenges. So I think step one, create a forum for those people to be heard.
Yes, that's so good. And sometimes the answer is right in front of us. And
Mhm.
being able to get our ideas out early, we can solve that problem before it ever becomes an issue. We talked about internally and externally, but now we're getting our ideas out to our customers, and that always brings feedback. And we love our topic about our honest feedback. You frame feedback as critical part of the innovation process and not something to avoid. How can individuals and teams learn to see feedback as a gift rather than criticism, especially when they're closely tied to the idea?
Yeah, so here's the thing that, all of us have to get used to receiving feedback. Most of us don't like feedback. We say we want it, but then when we get the feedback, we feel some kind of way about it. And so we all have to get used to receiving feedback. And the thing about feedback is this, especially when you're innovating, when you're building something new, it actually allows us to move towards where the true problem is that we're trying to solve. And so a lot of times when we're building something new, we're kind of throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing if it sticks. But what we really need to do is anchor in the problem that we're trying to solve, who we're trying to solve it for. And there are frameworks and building blocks out there that help us do this, right? To indicate whether or not we're heading towards success or failure with a product. One of the ways that I love to do this is just getting out there and talking to the customer, asking them for their opinion. And one of the secrets here is not to bring 100 ideas to them or one idea, but to bring a few ideas. And then that way we're not isolating one idea where they feel like, man, I feel so bad if I tell you I don't like this because you only brought me one idea. If I bring them a couple of ideas, they can kind of divide or discern between those ideas and say, you know what, I don't like this idea. Here's why. I really love this one. And this one's okay, but I think you need to tweak it. So giving people enough basis to where they don't feel like if you bring your one idea and they shoot it down, you've got nothing left. So kind of bring some different versions of that idea. And then the other thing is once you've socialized that with the customer, we need to batch that feedback. So sometimes the customer is going to give us feedback and some of it may be a really small change that we can make and it's easy and we should do that. Some of them are going to be really large, massive changes and we have to discern that, right? Sometimes they're going to tell us something that's probably out of scope, like great idea, not in my scope. So I do need to put that probably in my backlog and figure out what to do with that. And then there's going to be things that we can change over time that will also go in that backlog. So I think, getting our ideas out there, talking to customers, pitch your ideas internally to your, the employees within your organization and externally to customers, and really hear that feedback and take that feedback in as a way that you can evolve that product or that idea. Because here's the thing, we can pitch through, doing a value proposition exercise with the customer. We can go through and validate benefits. We can do pricing, sketches. There's so much we can do just to get in front of the customer with different facets of what the idea is. But ultimately, we need to keep it simple and we need to learn quickly from that feedback and move our idea forward so that we can release that value as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like in your book you said feedback gives innovators guardrails to see the early signs of success and failures. So I
Mhm.
think it's just important to still know that they're not bashing your entire idea. I mean, sometimes they might be, but at least you're in the early season and early process to be able to take that feedback back and be able to really change your idea to make sure it's successful. So I love that. I also love your batch feedback that you talked in the book that there are different types of feedback. Sometimes it is just simple things that you missed or simple things that you can change. But then if it is larger, you can take it back to your dream team and talk about it and have some ideas around how to fix it. So I think that's awesome. Socializing innovation is really about building traction and buy-in. What are some of the key ways leaders can help their ideas gain momentum across an organization instead of stalling out?
One of the things that I think we've all learned probably in our career is that the meeting is not the meeting where everything happens. It's the meeting before the meeting. And so often as leaders, we need to have those meetings before the meeting. As a matter of fact, when we finally get into the meeting where maybe people are going to approve your idea or fund your idea, we actually need to make sure we've had the previous meeting before the meeting so that they can give their input, they can give their buy-in, and they can really hear about your idea, ask questions, so that when we're really just getting into that meeting, we're really just kind of crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's at that point. And so often, when we think about launching an idea or launching something new, we don't realize how important the socialization before the big meeting is. And oftentimes, people who are sitting in the meeting, if they're hearing your idea for the first time, maybe that surprise is creating overwhelm. And that overwhelm in them is going to create pushback. And so that's what we're trying to avoid. We want to get all the pushback before the meeting so that we can just talk about and clarify what's going on in the meeting. And so that to me is just when we talk about socializing ideas internally, we want to reduce the friction by having those challenging or hard conversations before we ever get to the place where we're approving and funding ideas. And the best leaders I see, they know how to have the meeting before the meeting so that their ideas are pushed through faster and it's easier to actually articulate and understand the value proposition of what you're trying to build.
Yeah, that's good. I see an overlying theme of communication and from start to finish, not only communicating to your internal team, but to your users and your customers and your external team, your leadership, to be able to have all that communication out in the open so that nothing is missed. So that's awesome. I love that. This chapter has laid out framework from discovery to validation to pitching to all of it. Where do you usually see teams getting stuck in that process, and how can they move past that to actually bring their ideas to life?
Yeah, so honestly, we can talk about financial models and all these other things that you could use to pitch your ideas, but where I feel most people kind of stall out is in storytelling of the idea. So this is the place where I think that the world is really at your fingertips in terms of what you can do. How do you tell the story of how what you're building solves a problem for your everyday customer? And then how do you even bring in some of the stories from the customers you've already talked to? I can tell you this, and we talked about this in one of the past episodes, but one of the most successful ideas we ever saw, the person came to us and said, "Oh, and by the way, I've already sold 10 of these to clients. So as soon as we build it, I've got 10 people waiting in the wings to buy this." There's nothing more convincing than sales, right? Sales cures all. So when we can actually show the story of how people are excited to buy this product, and in addition to that, the fact that they like it and they're ready to buy, the fact that they're willing to pay for it right now. And we do that through, not only the story we tell to the client and how we get them excited about what it is and how it's going to solve their problem, but then and how we share those stories internally and get people really excited about what you're building. So if we can create the right framework, right, to tell the right story about this product using real customer quotes, that gets people excited, right? Like we don't get excited about spreadsheets. We get excited about possibility and potential and what this could actually do to solve real problems for people. And yes, we also get excited about the sales that go along with that. But that's really how we want to think about some of these ideas is how do we tell the story around what we're building and who we're building it for? Some of the best customer solutions you see out there tell a phenomenal story. I even just think of different brands that are out there. Different brands I've been roped into buying, like Farmer's Dog, right? Where it talks about how your dog is going to get this food that's like almost human grade food, and who'd want to give their dog food that's been like over processed, right? So you kind of get connected, you get drawn in by the story, and then the story is what leads you to buy the product. So I think we have to remember that, right? That we can do all these things, but at the end of the day, people love to be a part of the bigger story that we're telling.
I think that's awesome. And I think it comes back to buy-in. And I think it's really cool that the stories will encourage people to buy into the process, but also, like we talked about, being in that initial process and in the beginning, it's so much cooler to say that you saw the whole thing happen from the first to the last step, being able to hear the stories. And then also after going back to the same customers and hearing their feedback and making it better, I think it's so cool that people can rally around that. And I think that's awesome. Do you have any final thoughts for chapter 4?
So the biggest thing is, I actually have a socialization framework that you can download, so that you can think about how you want to socialize your ideas. You can head over to setitonfire.co to download some of these frameworks, whether it's the napkin sketch framework or the socialization framework. The idea is this, like, get your ideas out there. Talk to good people who are going to give you good feedback, those zero gravity thinkers who are not held back by the organization or the politics, and will just be honest with you. Because when you're building something new and you're building something no one has ever seen before, having people who don't give you real honest feedback is unhelpful. So we want to get to the people that will give us real feedback and help propel us forward. It is Feedback is a gift. Sometimes it's hard to receive, but it is a gift that will help us move faster and more intentionally in the direction that we want to go. So that is the goal of whatever we're trying to build.
That's awesome. I love that. Today was great. I loved being able to see just a process of when you have ideas and how to go about it, how to get people on your team, and just socializing the innovation. I think most people have great ideas, but they don't know where to start, or they're not doing the process journey as best as they possibly can. So this was great encouragement that it doesn't have to be perfect, but get people to rally around you and support you and get your feedback because it is a gift, even though sometimes we might not like it. Thank you, Natalie, for today. Where can people find and follow you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mariah. This was fun, and I appreciate you doing this with me. So you can head over to innovationmeetsleadership.com to learn more about the frameworks. I have the book called Set It on Fire, The Art of Innovation. You can head over to setitonfire.co to learn more about the book, the frameworks, and all the resources there so that you can get started innovating. If you're serious about innovation, you need to go get these materials. I've spent a number of years in product development, and these things really work, and they move us ahead. They kind of cut through all the noise and help us to get to meaning faster. So head over there. And guys, thank you so much for joining the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Remember, don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.
Thank you for joining us for the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our show on iTunes. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Innovation Meets Leadership, and visit our site at innovationmeetsleadership.com for more innovation resources.
Hey, my new book is out, Set It on Fire, The Art of Innovation. Click on the link to learn more. And don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.